Welcome back to the Low Stick Podcast. I know it's been a little while, but I'm here with Eric Dettman. I'm Jason Retz. We are excited to bring you another episode. We have just concluded our seasons. We've got all kinds of great stuff happen through the course of the season, school records, state champs. I mean, you couldn't ask for a much better season than what we've had to this point. Spoiler alert, watch some YouTube videos on some Oregon and Illinois championships, and you'll see some awesome stuff happening. You've got amazing stories with your distance gals pulling off some huge points. Give me the 30-second wrap up of your second place finish. Congratulations at the state meet.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. We went in with big goals of trying to win a trophy, and we knew it would be tough because we were, primarily relying on three distance events, a 3K, a 1500, and 800. But the kids were awesome. In the 3K, we went 4, 8, 9. In the 1500, we went 1, 4, 5. In the 800, we went 1, 2. And then three of our distance girls ran a 4x4 that got fifth. And then we had a sophomore hurdler, a 100-meter hurdler who was awesome, who got sixth. So 50 points, 43 from distance events, and then, some additional ones with the 4x4 and the hurdles. Pretty special.
Wow.
I've coached at Oregon for 11 years. I've never seen, this is a humble brag, I've never seen a group of distance athletes be so dominant on one gender. It was pretty special.
And the way they got it done, I mean, if you've been following this podcast, you know how this thing's evolved, right? You know what we do. Like, that's the crazy thing, is there's no secrets to this, and it's awesome to watch them get done the right way, for sure. But we'll get into some of that today. So what we want to talk about after the conclusion of the season here is we want to talk about some of the workouts that worked and some of the things that didn't work. So we want to give you some of those very specific details. We're going to look at different parts of the season, early in the season, late in the season, how it panned out, what our thought process was, maybe even what some of the exact volume looked like as we go. So let's just do this starting at the beginning of the season. Okay. We all talked about what we were doing in January. We talked about what the volume looked like. But when you started to look at specific workouts related to what you were trying to race, what was the time period at which you started those types of workouts?
That's a good question. Oregon doesn't have we don't have an indoor state meet. We don't have an indoor season, but we went up to the University of Washington in February. And that was kind of our first opportunity to get an idea of where we were at. And really and truly, probably 10 days before that, we touched on some of those faster things. Like my 800 girls did 3x400, 3x200 pretty quick, just to turn the legs over. And so that feeling wasn't super foreign when they got going on race day. I think what we did really well is we transitioned. So we did more race specific stuff for that Washington meet. We went to Nike indoors. We continued to do some race specific stuff, but then we peeled back on that and went super heavy strength stuff again for about 4 weeks before then we dove back into like kind of that faster stuff. So I'd say like the beginning of April is when we really started to turn over again. But I really like that. We've never really followed that format, but I think we're going to do it in the future. Like, we went fast, kids were running fast. They felt some confidence and felt good about going fast early, but then we went heavy strength, a lot of tempo, a lot of longer reps, things like that, hills, to prepare for what the last month or so of the season was going to look like.
So give me a rundown real quick. If we're looking at the last month of your season, kind of in your championship season, is that when you started to dial it back in fast again, or did you do it prior to that? Or was it heavy strength in there?
I would say like April is when we started to really dial into some of that faster stuff where we're going to run, 4x400 at mile pace or 4x200 at 800 pace, things like that. And we still touch on a lot of the strength stuff. We might do 3x1K at threshold and then dive into some faster stuff after. But really and truly, we stayed away, I would say, from like very specific mile effort or 800 effort training outside of one workout. So like 16 days before the state meet, I posted about this on our Twitter account in response to the coaching distance account. And they're talking about what are some post-season 800 workout or late season 800 workouts we do. And we did 2x600, 200. So it's a minute rest between the 6 and the 2, 8 minutes rest between the sets. And the first set is at goal pace or gate pace. The next set is at goal and 2 week pace. That's like the only really super specific, like girls are on the ground dying workout that we did all year, really and truly.
Yeah.
We touched on the speed stuff a lot, but we tried to really emphasize strength as well.
Yeah, we are actually in the similar boat, believe it or not. But if we look at the spectrum, we are really on both ends of the spectrum, and we try to stay out of the middle as much as possible during track season.
Yeah.
We will do a lot of heavy strength stuff, even through our indoor state meet. We may go fast a little bit, but the weather's going to dictate what that's going to look like for us. So there's been times where we haven't been able to do that. If you remember previous episode, it was like 60 degrees prior to the indoor state meet. So we were able to go fast, but that doesn't happen very often.
Hmm.
We really stay out of that. If we're going threshold and we're running 2Ks or we're running continuous, that's where we're at, or we're going faster at mile or faster pace,
Yeah.
whether it's 200s, 150s, 120s, kind of cranking it down, trying to hit
Yeah.
both ends of the spectrum. Um,
I, one thing that we did differently this year that I really liked, and I think, and I kind of stole this from a few other coaches, or not necessarily talking to them, but seeing what they were doing. A lot of coaches hate dual meets, right? Like they hate those midseason meets. I love them now because we were able to utilize them in a way that like they were a secondary workout for us. So Ellery and Sophia Malinowski, who I knew were going to go 1500 or 800 prelim on Friday, 1500, 800 4x4 on Saturday. That's a lot, right? That's a lot, not a lot of volume, but it's a lot of fast running.
yeah,
And early in the season with our league meets, our first one we went 400, and the way that Oregon set up, you have the 400 hurdles, 800. So they did that, and they ran really fast in the 400. Not a lot of rest. Had to jump on the line, and they were like, "This sucks." And I'm like, "I know." But I want you to feel right now how you're going to feel on the 4x4 at the state meet because your legs are going to feel like jello and you need to know what that feels like and know that you can overcome that. And Soph was pretty sick on that day, but Elliot ran like 215 and Soph was like 219 or 220 or something like that. So they knew. And then like the next meet, we had a league meet. We went 400, 200, 4x4 because again, I wanted to mimic like how they're going to feel. That's one thing we did differently. I feel like in the past I've shied away from that. Like we're just going to run one event and go home kind of thing. I'm like, no, let's use these league meets to really give ourselves a chance to do, some specific work to prepare us for the season. I don't know if you do that. And honestly, I think your league meets are on Tuesdays. So maybe that changes things in terms of where they're at in the week, but that was a successful piece for us.
yeah, no, that's definitely something that we've done in the past. Now, this year we had to have two of those canceled because of weather. So we were a little behind the eight ball trying to do that, but we've done similar things. We've had the distance kids show up. They'll go run an hour before the meet even starts. Then Illinois order events a little different. The 804x2 are back to back. So what we've done is we've literally done an hour run, stepped on line, ran the 800, stepped right back on the line and ran a 4x2 with those guys to turn it over quick after they're fatigued. So
Yeah.
we've done a variety of different things to mimic some of those sensations. We didn't get some of those because we don't have a ton of dual meets on Tuesdays. We lost two of them, right? So that was the one component that we kind of lost out on. But that's why I feel like we try to mimic that a little bit more in practice with some of the fast stuff that we were doing. We did
Yeah.
more 120s and 150s this year than we've ever done.
Yeah.
I think the weather being nicer helped us with that, but also losing out on those opportunities to run 4x4s with those kids. You can run a 400 in practice, you can simulate 4x4, but unless you step on the line
Mhm.
like you do with those league meets, it doesn't mimic the stimulus that you're going to get.
Right.
The fatigue is just different.
Yeah. And I would, there's a lot of, and I hear it in Oregon, I hear it all over the country. Like there's a lot of coaches who I think don't love league meets. And I understand why, in a lot of ways, like you start at 4, you're done at 8:30. Like that's a long midweek meet for kids when you think about school and all these other things.
Yeah,
But let's turn that thought process into a positive. Like, how can we make this a good experience for those kids? Because there definitely is value that we can get from those rather than like these suck. We just have to get through them.
absolutely. So you mentioned varying your distances with a little bit of strength stuff and speed stuff at the end. Even late in the season, did you touch on some of that strength stuff before you would do speed? We've talked in the past how to try to find a level of fatigue that we're shooting for. Sometimes we supplement. Do you still do that in track
Yep.
late in the season as well?
Yeah, for a couple reasons. One, I've said this before, like I think a lot of high schoolers struggle to warm up properly. So if we're going to try to like rip something pretty quick, I want to make sure that they're ready to go. And for us, that can look like an 800 at threshold up to a 2K at threshold. depending on what the actual volume of the workout is. We also like our girls aren't super high mileage. Like Ellery's probably averaged 25 miles per week this spring. And even on some weeks, I'd say that's high. But like, we still need to find places to get that volume because our training runs aren't aren't as long as somebody else.
Right.
Or even Tira, right? Who was running 40 miles a week. Like, I don't want her cooldowns to have to just be like 3 miles of slogging through. So let's add an extra 2K of threshold at the beginning and actually get a benefit out of it. So we definitely do that stuff before our harder sessions still.
One of the things that we've done in that regard is we will flip it a little bit. So, for example, instead of doing a 2K before, we may run 3 by 150 fast
Mhm.
and then run a quarter at threshold with short rest on it, turn around, do it again. So
Yeah.
trying to find that stimulus of fatigue without going to that level of fatigue, I think can be achieved a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Going a little longer early or spreading that out during the workout. We saw a lot of success throughout the course of the year. I think the old mantra that we would have was we're going to be ready when it's time to be ready. And we are, but I feel like we're more ready throughout the course of the
I
season
agree.
to run fast. Our kids aren't going to have this incredible time drop throughout the course of the season. They're going to be a little more level, but I think that they enjoy being fast year round instead of just
Yeah.
times a year.
That was gonna be my thing is like, why should they? Like, why should they have a 20-second drop if, even if it's only a 5-second drop at the state meet, like who cares if they're running fast?
Yep.
Like one of my girls, Elise, she ran 10:06 indoors and she ended up running 9:55 outdoors. Like, I can live with that. Like, it's only 9 seconds over the span of like 3 months, but when you get to that level, like shaving time off is hard.
Yes.
She still ran faster. She scored at the state meet. Like, she had an incredible season. Like, yeah, let's try to be quick over the entirety of the year rather than like we're going to do it all in the last 2 weeks. Um,
And I
and
also think during track season, and you're in the same boat here, weather plays a factor. And
yeah,
you can't, it's very difficult to say, let's just run fast at this meet. It could be 20-mile-an-hour winds, right?
right,
Like, so if you can give them the opportunity to run fast at some point, it helps them build confidence as a high school kid throughout the course of the year.
right,
Not just that 1 or 2 times during the year. A little different than cross country because you can get after it a little more often if you choose to. Not saying that we should be racing incredibly hard 2 times a week all year long. That's not what we're
right,
saying.
right,
But the physical fatigue of an 800 is going to be less than what it's going to be for 3 miles or 5K throughout the course of the season,
right.
even if you're doubling at some of those meets. Now, obviously, if you're running 3K 1500 or 32 mile, that's a different story in a way. You're not going to want to do that every week, but
Right.
but what you're doing, giving them multiple events to check that level of fatigue, what's going to feel like proportionally, I think can
Yep.
be very valuable throughout the course of the year.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. I totally agree.
So when you are kind of matching your workouts. So we talked about this, right? If the last month of the season you're retouching on that, you're really only going to have what 4, 6 workouts that are race specific before you
Yeah.
hit the state series.
hmm it's funny. I'm looking at our log right now, and I'm like, man, we didn't do that much hard stuff this year. Like I'm looking at, I said in April is when we kind of started touching on that, and that's true. But we used our league meets really well this year. I know
Yeah.
I just said that, but like we use them really well to get some of that work in. But it's just like a lot of training run in strides. Like we really tried to focus on that process, the recovery piece, nearly as much as we did, and not necessarily going to the well all that much. I look at April and outside of meets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 workouts
Yeah.
in all of April.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4 for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And truly like just workouts. I'm looking at the sheet, like I'm not like making this up. Like I just don't know that you need that much, if you utilize some of those league meets and you're really judicious about what you're doing. And even those workouts, like they weren't particularly hard. Like I look at this one day was 2Ks at threshold plus 3 by 150. Another day, this was a harder day, 18 by 400 in sets. So sets of two, like two sets or three sets of it, depending on how many they're doing. Or 4x400, 4x200. Like it's not a lot of super hard stuff.
Nope.
Um, 16 days out, that was the hardest one. The 600, 200 workout was the hardest one. But like, I think our kids generally went to the line fresh. And I look at like our boys, so like our boys finished fifth at our district meet, and we did not qualify for the state meet, which we were all super disappointed about. If we reran that district meet today, we would have auto qualified. And I think there's some things we changed in the cross country season to track and field that's helped that. And a big piece is the recovery piece and making sure that like we're not going to the well from a workout standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm looking right now, April 15th for us, which is close to where our conference meet is, or our big one out from our conference meet. 3x 300, 200, 100 with a 100-meter float in between, 8 minutes rest on the sets.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the most difficult thing we've got.
Yeah.
And they just cut those down from 3, 2 to 1. You're
Yeah.
looking at mile 800 and then close it down.
Yeah. I think if you're like just building that aerobic engine, as much as you possibly can, like at the end of the day, that's going to be your best friend. And then tapping into speed, with strides and things like that and sprinkling some workouts, like your kids are going to run really fast.
So I've got a great friend. We both have a great friend, Paul Vandersteen, who my son last year was dealing with an iron deficiency. And so I was trying to do everything I could to get him to be effective at the best of his abilities. And one of the things that Paul said to me was, just run both ends of the spectrum and you'll be fine. It's okay to go hard in short spurts and be okay. Well, so we did it. We did it for probably 6 weeks trying to recover from his iron deficiency. He qualified for state in the mile as a freshman, which was great, but didn't really run the time he wanted to. The next night at distance night, or under the lights where Eastern runs, anybody who shows up runs like a 5-second PR off of 200s and 150s. We didn't do anything in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Easy run, fast stuff, and still running his best time. Our 800 kids, 400, 800 kids ran under the lights this year. I got a freshman, never run the mile in his life. His PR was non-existent. Shows up, steps on the line, runs 4:53. First time he runs the mile ever. Both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
It's effective. And I think we saw that, and you saw that more this year than ever. Strength stuff, fast stuff. We don't need these middle of the road type of things during track season to get us where we want to be.
Right.
Track's about being fast.
Right. I agree. And I think if you do cross country right, like you have such an amazing aerobic base from that as well that you're continuing to build off of. You don't want to lose that engine that you've created.
Right. And I don't want to mislead people here because our group was running a very high volume in preparation to this part of the season. And when I say high volume for us, now we're not talking 100 miles a week, but 60, 70 miles a week for some of our guys.
Right.
Our gal, probably 35, 40, 45 miles. So a fairly high volume to get to the point where we could capitalize on running fast.
Yep.
And if you neglect that, I think it's difficult to sustain. The tower tips over.
Right.
So right at the end, you had your state series. Once you got into your state series, which for you is a course of 3 weeks, correct?
2 weeks. We have a district championship, and then 10 days later we have state.
Okay. So what did it look like in that 10-day period of time?
It's pretty easy. So we had varsity districts. The day after varsity districts, we either do a training run, kids will hop on the bike, or they'll take the day completely off. And that is just because like districts is such an emotionally charged event, especially for us. Like our boys are trying to win 2 in a row. Our girls are trying to win their 8th one in a row. We were trying to win all 4 levels like we did last year. Like there's just so much emotional energy. I'm like, just take the day off if you feel like you need that. So they'll do that. The day after, depending on how you feel, you're either doing a training run or a modified long run. And then on Monday, if you're a 3K girl, so our 3K is on Friday. If you're a 3K girl, you're doing 6x400 at effort with 2 minutes rest. On Tuesday, if you're running the 800, 1500, then you're doing 3x400, 3x200, and that's at mile effort, all of it. So their 400s were in like 71. Those are in flats with 2 minutes rest. They'll take their flats off, put their spikes on, and do 3x200 at the same pace. So they'll run their 200s in like 35, and they end up running them like 31 because they want to turn over. And then training run pre-meet state champs. Like it's pretty simple. But we definitely like something we started this year that I really liked is we are definitely doing some more like harder work before the state meet rather than just like taking that week completely off. Like we've done this all season. Kids have responded well to it all season. Like we're not going to just stop because it's the state meet week now.
Yep. Ours is very similar. We had sectionals on a Wednesday, then we turn around the next Friday and have our prelims. And our guys 4x8 ran 5 second season best, just missed qualifying for the finals. Not everybody had an A+ day, but A-B+ day. I mean, you'll take that at the end of the year. On that Monday, we ran 200s and 120s. We spiked up for the 120s and finished like we were closing 800 down, right? So
Right.
we were doing fast things. Those 200s are progressive, starting at about mile effort and cranking it down pretty quick at the end. We're not going to avoid what's worked all season long. There's no point. It's
Yeah.
got to work.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think trying to fill that or follow that format that you've been doing up to that point is really helpful.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this, because we're talking a little bit about like what we've done and we've talked about a few, specific workouts. So tell me this, one thing that you did this year, a new workout that you incorporated that you really like that like, hey, I think we're going to keep doing this. And one thing that you think you potentially messed up on, like, oh, I wish we'd done more of this, or I wish we'd incorporated more of that.
That's a fantastic question. I think the primary thing that we are going to go away from as we move into the future years is we are going to um, really stay out of the faster than threshold work of anything over a K. I think if we're going K or more, it's going to stay in that threshold range. I don't really see a need to run a VO2 type workout at 1,000 meters or more during track season. Um, does that carry some value maybe in the off season prior to? Absolutely. But because we're really trying to revolve around the 800 and mile for us, I think staying out of that is more time we can spend either in threshold work or doing faster stuff, turning it over.
Mhm.
And I think the thing that we're going to continue to do is we're going to continue to try to go fast year round. And we've been doing that for a couple years, but we're going to take days when we're stuck inside and we're going to spike up with the sprinters and we're running 40-meter flies. We don't do that often, and I don't think we need to do that often, but I do think it's valuable for us to touch on those things year round. Sprinting is a skill, and I know this answer, but when your gals closed to win a state championship at the end of the 15, what are they running?
64.
Exactly. Is that fast? Heck yeah,
Yeah.
that's fast. You got to know how to sprint. So I think we're going to continue to stay on both ends of the spectrum a little bit better
Mhm.
moving forward. And I mean, this is to talk about as well, but I also think that during the course of the summer, we're going to continue to hit both ends of that spectrum
Yeah.
better than we have in years past. We're going to have fun and we're going to sprint against each other. We're going to have some relay races where we're running fast. We're going to do some fun things that go really fast.
Yeah.
What, where are you leaving things out, and what are you making sure you're still including?
I think so. I talked about this on a previous podcast, and it's a workout that I really like early, where it's 1,000 at threshold, 200 jog, 200 at mile effort, 200 jog, and it's continuous. And they'll get faster for each of those thousands. I just really liked how our kids responded to that. And it also puts that mindset of closing in, so Kira, or I'm sorry, so Ellery and Soph, Soph closes in 62 in our 800, Ellery closes in 64 in our 1500. But Kira, who was our 3K girl, who ran the 3K and the 15, both of those races, she had to finish to go grab extra spots. And I was yelling at her as she was running by like points, 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 because she had the ability to pick up like 3 or 4 points in each race. And 200 to go, like both of those, she buried people. And I think a big part of that was because like in January, in February, we were practicing that. And a big part was that workout where we're going to run a certain effort. It's going to be a little easier for 200 meters. And then you got to run fast.
Yeah.
So I really like that. That 600, 200 workout, we historically have done it multiple times. So we've done it as many as 3 times in a year. I don't know that we need to do that. Like, I don't know that our kids need to go to the well like that many times. And I look back at, what April looked like, 5 workouts or whatever it was. Like we just don't need to do that much stuff in order for our kids to run fast. And then on the guy side, I was talking to one of my kids about this the other day. Like, if my girls are running 30 miles a week and my boys are running 55 or 60, why are my boys only doing 4 strides? Shame on me for having them only do 4 strides. Like they could probably do 8 to 12 based on their volume. And I think that's a thing that we're going to really adjust based off of this season is like, that's appropriate for the girls to do like 400 meters, because that's, for some of those kids, it's like a tenth of what their run's going to be that day. But for the
Right.
boys, like they can do 8 to 12 up to 16. And I think they're going to get a big value out of that. That's where I think I messed up on the boys side this year. It's like some of the volume of their workouts could have been a little bit more than what it was. So I want to adjust that.
Now, when you're doing strides for their workout, are you varying their length and speed of those? I mean, what's that
Um,
look like?
Yeah, it does vary. I would say typically like 95% of the time they're going to be hundreds, and we'll start at 5K and cut down to 800 pace. Sometimes it'll be 150s. And actually sometimes I call them strides, but we do 300s. So after a training run, we'll do like 2 by 300. And part of that is a Newtonism. Part of it is something I heard Jay Johnson say. But when Mr. Newton you made us do a 300 after training runs, it's like, well, when do you feel worse? Like your absolute worst. It's like after a training run, you just like, trudge around for 45 minutes and you come back and you feel a little flat or tight or this or that. Like you have to teach the body how to turn over when you feel that way. So I really like that. And then, Jay Johnson talks about like ending your long run with strides, because a lot of times you get tired, you start to sit, your form starts to break down, like end with good form so that the last thing your body remembers before it starts its next day is good form. So then we try to use those 300s as the same thing, like ending with good form, and kids are starting the next day feeling like they were running properly the day before.
Yeah,
So
that's uh that's also the same reason why I got rid of cooldowns.
yeah. Yeah, talk about that. I know that's a hot take, but
Well, we get plenty of volume from our warm up and our workout, and if I need more volume, then I'm gonna assign it differently throughout the course of the week. But I don't
yeah,
want them slogging around with bad mechanics. Like I
right,
just don't. If we're gonna do extra volume after a workout, it's gonna be 15 minutes or more. We are not gonna go for a mile, cool down, slogging where their feet are barely getting off the ground.
right.
I can have them do drills. I can have them go walk. You know, I, it builds so much cohesion with them when they run a great workout and then they're walking 10 minutes on the turf barefoot together. Like there's so much positive energy. They're not even talking about the workout. They're just in good mood. So then they're
Right.
just hanging out together. And the momentum that builds with each other, high-fiving each other when they finish the workout. Maybe they're done slightly before the other group, but they're walking around the field in the opposite direction, just yelling people's names and cheering them on. Like
Yeah.
I've heard our group with 12 guys and 3 girls cheering louder for somebody finishing their workout than I have the entire stadium full, right? Like they're just
Yeah.
jacked. The music's just blasting, a little motley crew on the speakers, just having a blast. And there's so many reasons why I got rid of cooldowns for running, but watching that excitement is probably the best thing I've done to our best reason to get rid of those cooldowns.
Yeah.
They go in and they do their auxiliaries. They'll go do their strength stuff. They'll go to the weight room together and they're just chatting it up, enjoying it, and having a good time. I mean,
Yeah.
what more could we ask for as coaches,
Yeah. Especially as high school coaches.
especially as high school coaches? They love the sport and they love cheering each other on, and that gives them the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, get get rid of cool downs. They're overrated. Like, look, Timo doesn't do warm up drills.
Right.
They put their legs up, they run around, they show up the line, they kick everybody's butt, they go home.
Yeah.
Some of the things we do, we say it helps, but we just say that because people before us have told us that
I
it.
mean, that's why we changed our warm up this year was like, I felt like we were just doing too much. Like 35 minutes out from our race is when we start, and they'll do 10 to 15 minutes. Our drills take almost no time. And then you just sit and wait for your race to start. Like it doesn't give you enough time to think. It
Yep.
doesn't give you enough time to put negative thoughts into your head. Everything is like boom, boom, boom. You get to the line, your heart rate's so high, like let's go race and have a day. Um,
I tell our kids, if you don't get to drills, who cares?
yeah,
If you just got your run in, and because we try to cram it close just like that. If we cram it close and you don't get time for drills, who cares? We're
right.
ready to go. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of value in that.
Timo. Well, do we have anything else that we want to cover on this topic?
I don't think so. I think, like things that worked for us, like if we're kind of recapping what we've talked about, like for us at Lincoln High School, like it's less emphasis on the workouts. We're not trying to pound our kids into the ground every week. We have something that we feel is appropriate, but we're really trying to touch on, like you said, both ends of the system year round. We're going to run fast early, and we're going to keep doing, some long threshold stuff late. And I think that's really applicable for any kid and can help really any kid be successful.
And it's safe. It's absolutely safe. You get them to the finish line safe and
Yeah.
healthy. Like that's important. All right, so we've got a huge June lined up for you. We are going to be out at Nike Outdoor, taking a couple of our kids out there to compete. You'll be out there. We will be out there together. Hopefully, I'll be catching you as you are celebrating some stuff, and hopefully, you're catching me. I've been lifting pretty consistently, so good luck.
So
But we'll be doing that. You'll probably see some content from us there on Instagram. We're going to try to do a much better job there now that our season is concluded. We can put some good stuff out for you. Maybe put some examples of these workouts. We may screenshot and steal away. I mean, we've stole this stuff from other people and tweaked what we've got. We expect you to do the same. Our goal is to get everybody run fast. Right? That's the fun part about this sport, and we're seeing that happen every single year. People are getting better. Our group message we're in, we've got people winning state and running fast all the time, and it's just so much fun to celebrate those coaches and those kids doing so many great things. So we'll be doing that. We'll be looking for June. We're probably going to come up with something. I'm sorry, we've got something super excited planned. We're going to wait and hold off. We may tease into that just a little bit as we get closer, but let's just say some of the success we've seen and some of the school records we've seen, we're going to dive into those just a little bit as we move forward. So we appreciate you joining us. We may have gone a little over here, but man, we've got so much exciting stuff happening this last couple months. It's been great, not only for our programs, but as we watch you guys. We love hearing from you. We love seeing you, shaking your hands at the meet and talking to you guys. That's awesome. We're not celebrities by any means, but we love hearing that this is positively helping the community of running. And that's all we're shooting for here is
yeah.
talk to each other and help people out.
Yeah, that's the best part is people coming up. When we were at NXN last year, I had a couple people come up to me and talk about the podcast, and that's awesome that people from around the country are listening. So we so appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we're just spitting out information we've learned from others. So to do justice to those that have helped us out, we enjoy helping other people as well. So we appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching. Whatever you're doing, share it with your mom, your grandma, whoever it might be. And until next time, we will see you on the Low Stick Podcast.